Welcome, welcome. We'll bring this meeting of the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency Board to beginning, and want to welcome everybody here. Let the minutes show that all members of the board are present, with the exception of Mr. England, who has his alternate here from the university with us. Welcome. And we need a motion to approve the agenda. Any changes anybody wishes to entertain with the agenda?
Move approval.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's opportunity for public comment now, and we have one member of the public here with us today that's brought a card forward, Christine Casey. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Christine Casey. I'm the chair of the City of Woodland Water Utility Advisory Committee. Our committee looks forward to continued collaboration with the City of Davis on the surface water project through the JPA. However, our committee is growing increasingly concerned about the possibility that that collaboration is going to continue to exist. We've prepared a statement outlining our policy, our opinion on that I'd like to read to you this afternoon. The Water Utility Advisory Committee recommends that the Woodland City Council and the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency continue to remain aware of actions by the City of Davis related to their participation in the surface water project. Recognizing that it is economically advantageous for both communities to remain committed to the current contract, the committee looks forward to the cities working together to complete the project by 2016. Given that this is time sensitive, however, at continued indications of City of Davis actions that will have a negative effect on Woodland, we recommend that if needed, Council take steps for Woodland to pursue an alternate course of action. In addition, any revisions to the existing Joint Powers Authority agreements affecting cost share that have been requested by the City of Davis should be fair and equitable. We believe there is a need to revise the JPA agreement to provide a clear and predictable path to project completion by 2016 for Woodland and/or the JPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Good.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Anybody wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Nope.
We have a motion then to approve the consent.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Mr. Deemer, we're ready for an update to the Davis Woodland Water Supply Project. Before you start this, this is probably clear to most people in this room, but not necessarily to everyone and not to the public. But even though the name of the agency is the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency, the name of the project is the Davis Woodland Water Supply Project. So that just tells you how intertwined we are and codependent.
Indeed.
Chairman Marble and board members, I have a very brief update for you this afternoon. Touch on these topics, the cost, spend a little bit of time on the project schedule because those are becoming increasingly important, and then describe some of the recent activities and things that we're going to be working on over the next couple of months. This is a slide that you have seen before. We talked about it at the last board meeting. The project capacity has been reduced to 30 million gallons per day, 18 million gallons per day for Woodland and 12 for Davis. And as a result, the capital costs have been lowered down from the previous $293 million to $245 million. The majority of our ability to reduce the cost is due to the capacity reduction. This also is a slide that you have seen before, our schedule milestones. The ones that are highlighted in orange are really the ones that we need to focus on in order to maintain our completion date of August of 2016. The plan is to still issue the final RFP for the DBO contract in December and to have that DBO contract awarded next September. We need to meet those two dates in order to be able to complete the project in August of 2016. Now, in your packet, provided a little bit more detailed schedule on both the intake and on the DBO procurement. This is the more detailed intake milestone schedule. What we've tried to identify along with each of the milestone dates is when a board decision is needed and when a city council decision is needed. So some of the activities are going to require board and some are going to require council approval. So we want to make sure that both this board and the councils are aware of these dates that are going to be coming forward and the need for them to take action in order to keep the overall project on schedule. By virtue of the JPA and its requirements, both city councils will need to consider and approve the construction activity. On this particular schedule is the DBO procurement milestones. We understand that Davis is in the process of identifying the language for their special election in March. We'll ask the board at our December meeting to authorize the issuance of the final RFP. Davis will have their vote, as we understand it, in March on the water project. At that same time, approximate same time, there will be the completion of the 218 process and approval of the rates. We'll be bringing back responses and input from the DBO teams in April and making any final adjustments to the RFP. At that point, they will begin the task of giving us a firm price proposal, and we'll come back to the board in August with a recommended most favorable proposer. That will then require the city councils to authorize the construction, or essentially the approval of the project engineering and construction and the board award of the service contract in September. So I think that we have been able to construct a schedule that accommodates the process completion in Davis and maintain the 2016 schedule. But I do need to tell the board that we have very little cushion in the schedule at this point. We've basically compressed it about as much as we can. But we feel confident that if we can hit these milestone dates, we can complete the project in 2016. Just a couple of slides on what has been accomplished since we last met. We continue to pursue SRF low-interest loan and grant funding opportunities. Probably the most significant information to share is our correspondence with the California Department of Public Health regarding SRF loans. And had a very good meeting since our last board meeting, where we've identified a particular category that is eligible for funding. It's called Category F, and it's based on the fact that wells in both Woodland and Davis have had to be taken out of commission due to nitrates exceeding the MCL. So we're in the process of gathering documentation, submitting that to the health department, and then we'll be seeking their confirmation that in fact the loss of those wells does place us in this eligible category. We continue to support the Davis Water Advisory Committee process, and we've been keeping the Woodland City Council apprised as to the progress of the JPA as well. We have made very good progress on the intake. We had a workshop with the DBO teams, got some very helpful suggestions that have been incorporated into the final design. We had a security consultant take a look at security issues. Those are also being incorporated into the design. And we're at this point essentially 100% complete on the intake design. We'll be finalizing the permitting process. What we're really waiting for on the intake project is the securing of the state match of the $16.7 million in federal funding that we recently received. Very good news on the site fill. This is an actual photo of the activities out at the site. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think we're actually ahead of schedule. We're looking to complete that project in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we currently, those of you that were out for the groundbreaking where the tent was is now under about 3 feet of dirt. So they're above the levees. They've just got a couple of feet left and maybe a week or two to finish the fill, and then it's all cleanup work and they're out of there.
That turned out to be a very good decision to get ahead of that before the rainy season. It went very smoothly, very efficiently, and Woodland, as you know, took the lead on getting that done, and it turned out to be a very favorable thing for the overall project itself. We talked about continuing to pursue loans and grants, continuing to support Davis. These are the things that we'll be focused on in the next couple of months. We do anticipate scheduling a financing workshop in November. We need to talk later in the agenda about whether or not we need a board meeting, but the thought is that if a board meeting is not needed, we might schedule a workshop that would be open to the board members, to the public, and interested staff about that time frame to kind of explain where we are with funding opportunities, the various bonding mechanisms that are available, and hear from our financial consultants on the strategy and schedule for the issuance of debt for the project. Well, obviously,
Dennis?
Yes.
Dennis, on the issue of, or the point here, pursuing grant fund opportunities, did the agency submit a proposal for the state match to this consensus project, Delta Consensus Project process?
It was not that specific. Our submittal was broader in nature, and it was consistent with the level of detail that other projects submitted. So that project was, the specific match was within the project description that we submitted, but it wasn't specific to it.
Did we withdraw that proposal?
We did not. There were 43 projects that were on the list. 19 of them were related to levee improvements. 14 were related to either habitat improvement or flood control. 7 were related to public education projects, and 3 other miscellaneous categories. Ours was the only surface water project that was submitted, and we got into submitted our project somewhat late in their process, and what happened was we basically ran out of time. So where we left it is that it's still a project that they're going to consider and discuss. They have some questions on where the water's coming from, and is anybody going to be harmed by virtue of the agency pulling water out of the river, those types of questions. The project will be considered in subsequent rounds of their process. It's a little bit unique in that it was the only surface water project, and it raised some concerns or issues that weren't associated with the more mainstream levee
So the
projects.
agency didn't withdraw it?
No. They anticipate that the process will continue, and they've invited us to come back and continue to discuss our project, answer the questions related to water supply, water rights, and I think with that opportunity, there's a good chance that we eventually get included in a revised list.
So please keep Yolo County staff and board members aware of how that's the status of that request, so that we can assist where we're in a room and it's being discussed.
Will do.
Okay, thanks.
I have, Dr. Mark?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question just regarding to the project financing workshop. Is the November date something you're looking for? I mean, at this point, we're still waiting for Davis election. I mean, there's a whole lot of issues. out there, and maybe it would be best to wait until some of those answers come forward. You know, I don't know that. I'm looking at Joe, I'm looking at Brent, you know. Right now, we're just guessing what that vote's going to turn out to be, and so that's my only question, is the timing good for Davis and good for all of us? So.
Now, we're going to be meeting next week with our financial committee, which is our financial advisors and the financial staff from both cities, and one of the things that we really want to coordinate on is the steps that need to take place in order to have the financing ready to go and the bonds ready to sell. I think as part of that, the thought was that maybe there would be a broader, more of a public education session in November. Obviously, we haven't set the date yet. Would like to get input or feedback from the board as to whether or not you think that's a good idea or not.
My personal opinion is, and I'm sorry I'm speaking out here before anybody else, but I think if we are going to do this kind of a financing workshop type thing, that we would be better served having a workshop in each community to get maximum public, participation. And my initial recommendation would be, if Davis feels that would be helpful for you to request that, Joe, you and Brett, and Skip, if you and I feel that could be beneficial here in Woodland, that we would set up something similar, and maybe that way it wouldn't necessarily need to be a formal board meeting. It could just be workshops. Would that seem appropriate?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, on the Davis side, it's going to probably take a couple more weeks or maybe a week to start having some sense of what the trajectory might be going forward. And I think we always know that we can call on Dennis and staff to do any kind of level of public outreach that we think would be beneficial, perhaps tailored to specific questions in Davis or more general. So, yeah, I think you're right, Bill, though, that thinking about it first as, each community is right at this point in time.
So with that, I think unless there's some decision points that the board needs to make in November, which we can determine later, that we would hold that date open maybe for a board meeting. But as soon as we know that we won't need that for decision points, then we'll let the board know that we're not holding that meeting.
Okay. And then we'll tailor any of these workshops to the specific needs and timing in each city.
Great.
We continue implementing the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Plan in Woodland, coordinating with PG&E and WAPA. We want to complete our efforts to secure WAPA power for the intake site initially, and then long-term potentially at the water treatment plant site. That will save a significant amount of money in terms of energy costs at the intake. Completing
Dennis, can I ask a question there? Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I certainly understand the issue. Getting access to WAPA power is a pretty big deal. So that's not within the DBO bid? I mean,
no.
One would think the O of DBO assumes that they're acquiring the electricity. No?
I think maybe Jim or Monique can tell me. I think we've assumed. What we've assumed in the way of power cost we've assumed that the agency will pay the power cost. But did we assume WAPA rates or PG&E rates? So we've been using the WAPA rates at the intake and the PG&E rates at the treatment plant site. We're eligible for WAPA power by virtue of the fact that RD 2035 has WAPA power now, and their bureau, it flows through the bureau, and it's the federal power coming through the bureau that we're eligible for.
So right now the assumption is WAPA power at the intake, but PG&E at the treatment plant, but we'd like to get it, obviously, WAPA at both.
WAPA at both, but the analysis that we've done so far indicates that it's several years off at the treatment plant. It's a more more involved process and a less certain process at the treatment plant to secure WAPA power.
Right, okay. But it may take a couple of years, but it's 2016, 2017 when we start drawing power there.
Actually, I think it's more on the order of 10 to 15 years at the treatment plant is our current estimate in order to go through their process. And a lot of it is when there are windows of opportunity for us to apply and to get on their list.
Oh, I see. It's that long a run
Whereas
for a WAPA. Okay.
At the intake, because they're already on WAPA power there, it's basically a acknowledgement that there are two different meters with the same amount of power that's going to be consumed.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to know whether or not it's proper to put the incentive for energy conservation on the operator, because they're the ones that stand to then, have the incentive to save the power. If we're paying for the power cost, then if I'm the operator, I don't really care about energy efficiency at the plant because it's not coming out of my hide.
It's a very good point. We will evaluate power as part of the total life cycle cost analysis that we'll do with the DBO teams, but we need to take maybe a closer look at exactly how we're incentivizing energy efficiency.
Yeah, I think we should do that. I mean, yeah, otherwise, right. You get it. Thanks. Bill, yeah, Greg.
Oh, Greg?
One of the reasons that we looked at taking the electricity out of the DBO contract was because of the volatility of the market and the risk that the contractor would have to fold into their price in order to make sure that they were covered for that we felt that the sharing of the risk by the agency taking the risk of the power fluctuation would reduce the overall cost. And how we would manage that is we would look at the power requirements of all three of the offerings and be able to look at that and see the differences. So that was the reasoning that we were looking at, is to try and reduce the risk to the contractor and in turn get it so they don't have to fold that into their price.
Maybe there's a way to still incentivize, though, them in that regard, and I think your point is we'd like staff to look at that.
Yeah. And Greg, just to follow up on that, I understand, if the treatment plant is PG&E, it's a regulated utility in the state of California. So how are PG&E are PG&E commercial rates or something more volatile than my residential?
Well, what they would have to do is they would have to plan out for 15 years of electrical usage at the plant, and nobody really knows where PG&E is going to be in 15 years from now. And that's therein lies the problem. So if you're a contractor, you've got a plan for 15 years, you're going to roll some contingency funds into that contract to make sure that you're going to be covered. And so to be covered at the end of 15 years, you're going to have some rollback in the previous years where it's going to cost you more or cost us more. And I agree with the idea of looking for ways to incentivize this and put something into the DBO process to sit there and say, if you meet this, thus this happens, something that's a good idea.
Right. But in a competitive bid environment, you could look at it and say, well, we've got to build in a certain amount of money to make sure in 5, 10, 15 years as the power price goes up, we're covered. You could also say we're going to build a sinking fund for energy efficiency, and we're going to make sure that the energy efficiency of our plant increases to offset whatever price increase might come. And right now, under this scenario, there's no incentive to kind of care about that. I guess if you did both, if you said, well, we're going to put some money away for a raise in rates, and we, are always looking at energy efficiency within the plant, then you get, you win on both sides potentially. But it's a competitive bid. You're going to hopefully sort a lot of that out. But I think we should watch this issue pretty closely.
I think it's a very good suggestion. We'll take a look at how we can minimize the contingency, but at the same time incentivize the energy savings.
This is an interesting issue, and one of the phrases that Greg used was reduce the risk. to the DBO contractors, and I think it sounds like the risk is eliminated for them in the current structure. So it's possible that there could be some, as a detail here, it's possible there could be some base level power usage that is assumed in the DBO contract, and then there's another amount above it that where risk is assumed by the agency.
That's actually the way we've got it set up in the RFP. They pay the first 20%, and then the next 80%.
Yeah, so I think probably the agency would want to look, it sounds like the board members are interested in seeing that detail and figuring out if there may be a better incentive.
We'll do it. Okay, just to wrap up, the next couple of months we'll be completing what we're calling the Harlan Bypass Environmental Assessment. This is an adjustment to the alignment on the Davis Treated Water Pipeline. We'll have that work completed and back to the board at your December meeting. We have submitted the 401 permit. If we haven't submitted it, it's within a day or two. And we're similarly very close with the Fish and Game Streambed Alteration Permit. So those permitting activities are moving along, not causing us any schedule issues or concerns at this point. And we'll continue to work with the Health Department on our permit for the treatment plant. And one other activity that is about to happen is an RFP for the treatment plant site aerosol study. And you might recall that we talked about this a couple board meetings ago. We want to make sure that we have solid documentation that any aerosols that are leaving the wastewater plant come anywhere near the treatment plant. And this will be a good baseline study to confirm that. Continuing our land and right-of-way acquisitions, we have sent 2 final offer letters to homeowners that we're having challenges with. We have one other additional letter that we'll be sending out shortly, and we'll be continuing those efforts and discussions with the board in December. And with that, I'd be happy to, one more. This is the completing of, I mentioned we have the completed 100% design and construction documents for the intake. We've talked about the RFP for the DPO teams, just mentioned the aerosol study consultant, and also previously mentioned the fact that the site fill is wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Questions?
Dennis, could you remind me of this, go back a couple slides and remind me what this, one more, what the Harlan bypass is? I'm sorry.
This is a easement on the Davis treated water pipeline. Initially, we were planning to go across properties.
Well, this
that
is
were
around
owned-
Road 29 configuration?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So it turned out to be the homeowner, property owner objected to the originally proposed alignment. We were able to go essentially across the street to a neighbor who has no problem, found an alignment that works fine, probably even a little bit better. And so that's
right.
The process that's underway is to get the appraisal completed for that property and the necessary environmental work revised so that we can proceed with that new alignment.
Right. So, this is complete appraisal, et cetera. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically happening. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not okay.
Yeah.
Good.
In fact, we'll be back with both the environmental documentation for your approval in December.
Yep, I remember. Thanks.
Is that the Burnell Harlan family? The Harlan family, Burnell and his what?
I'm not sure. Brunel Harlan?
Burnell?
I think so.
Yeah, it's just where they run the cattle right there. Yeah, okay.
This was
Yeah.
the, I don't know if you recall, the Woodland public meeting we had, the woman was concerned.
Right.
Yeah, very good community members, so I'm sure that they will support you anyway. We can talk to them if we need to.
So I think that the alternative alignment that we've worked out is acceptable to the homeowner, so that one is moving along just fine.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Financing update, Mr. Novazio. Mhm. Okay. No action that we need to take then?
Yeah, well, actually, that was covered in the consent item.
Right.
Just to clarify that the board should have received an updated copy of the treasurer's report and any related issues. We could speak to that. I would just add that, as we said before, and we are actively pursuing, really on this part of both cities, work that would come together to form the basis of the financing plan. Dennis, with the JPA staff and city staff, has been taking the lead on pursuit of the state revolving loan funds that currently really appear to provide the best opportunity for low-cost financing that not only lowers the overall project cost, but really helps both jurisdictions manage the rate impacts. At the same time, given the schedule that we're on and given the lack of certainty of the outcome, both cities, having gone through at various stages of their rate analysis, are continuing to work on essentially a debt financing or a revenue bond financing plan that would be needed to sort of overlay on top of any success we have with the state revolving loan fund. So as Dennis mentioned, I think we're meeting next Monday to kind of compare notes on some of the timeline schedule, underlying financing assumptions, and what are the milestones that need to be met, both at the two cities as well as at the board, to make sure that at the end of the day there would be a financing plan sufficient to meet the capital needs. And the state revolving loan funds are going to, like I said, provide really good opportunities, and we're hoping to be able to explore some of the possibilities that would then form the basis of some of these financing workshops, depending on whether, from the two communities' perspective, there's a premium on long-term rate management versus overall financing costs. And we're getting advice also from no shortage of folks that would like to have some input on that. So we're hoping to make that conversation a more public conversation before any decisions or recommendations come before the board or the councils. Okay.
Very good. Let's move on to the CEQA addendum.
Good afternoon, board members. Dennis asked me to handle this item. This is a proposed addendum under the California Environmental Quality Act relating to the 2007 final environmental impact report for the project. In 2007, when the City of Davis certified the final EIR, there was a detailed project description, essentially the same as what's before the agency at this time. However, in 2007, when the pipeline alignments were developed for planning purposes and environmental evaluation purposes at that time, the pipelines were in one location. Today, through additional engineering and environmental evaluation, there's been some changes to the pipeline. And you've got before you a proposed CEQA addendum. This is the third one of these we've done since 2007, outlining the changes in the pipeline alignment. This particular addendum relates to changes to the raw water transmission line. That's the east-west pipeline that comes from the river to the new treatment plant. On that one, significantly in 2007, the idea was to run the pipeline through agricultural land on the north side of the railroad. And at the urging and request of the State Department of Fish and Game, that alignment has moved to the south of the railroad, much of it now being within the right-of-way of County Road 22. That change was actually an environmentally preferable change. It moves the pipeline away from potential impacts to ag land to much of it being in a disturbed roadway already. And then the other change relates to the treated water transmission main from the new treatment plant site to the city of Woodland. Because of the change of the treatment plant site, as you know, that site changed a little bit, moving a little bit to the west. That also triggered a reanalysis of how the treatment plant would connect to the city of Woodland existing distribution system, and there's been some changes to those alignments. So those changes were evaluated by our environmental consultant, ESA. ESA looked at that and compared it to the 2007 analysis and concluded that these changes don't trigger any new or different environmental effects, and the proposed addendum confirms that. There's a proposed resolution in the board packet that adopts the CEQA addendum and makes the appropriate findings under CEQA. Staff recommends adoption of the resolution. And do you have any questions?
Any questions this end? Any questions this end?
What's the common word for trenchless? You've got trenchless crossing. Does that mean culvert?
No, trenchless means essentially tunneling.
Tunneling.
Yeah, these particular crossings are deep enough where the contractor will need to develop some kind of, and it's trenchless because there are different techniques, but some kind of tunneling to go underneath the levees and the waterways in those locations.
And that has to come back up.
Correct. Yeah, and those are pretty significant because those are, what, 30 feet down, ballpark? Yeah, and so the pipeline needs to go about 30 feet below ground, go underneath the levee, underneath the waterways, and then come back up.
You got a pump through there? I mean,
for
to get the water back up, or does it?
Well, it'll be pressurized. The raw water transmission pipeline will be pressurized, so it just pushes right through.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it's a trench, and then all of a sudden it goes on a little roller coaster ride down.
Correct.
And then that creates enough pressure that it pops it back up, and then it.
There you go.
Wow. But it works without a pump. I mean, it's all by itself. Okay. Well, I learn something new every day. Okay. Cool.
And then the only thing I would add, just to follow up on General Manager Deemer's comments, there will be a CEQA addendum number 4 coming to you for the some changes to the Davis treated water transmission line. There's ongoing analysis on that one. We wanted to wrap this one up because it was done, but that one will be coming to you, looks like in December.
Okay. Probably for this Harlan, the Harlan Road 29.
That's for the Harlan property we talked about, correct?
Sorry.
And that's the last one that we're aware of that will need additional CEQA analysis.
Okay, we'll hold you to that.
Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion. Do we need to open this for public hearing?
Not public hearing, but you should ask if there's any public
Any
comments.
member of the public that wants to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. I'll move that we adopt the CEQA addendum.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries. Long-range board calendar.
Yes, you have the calendar in your packet. You can see that November is looking like it's going to be a very busy meeting. However, in November, we have nothing that would be considered a priority. So it really, at the board's pleasure, we can meet in November or not, but there is nothing that is critical to our schedule that needs board action or consideration in November at this time.
So we'll hold it open for a week or two, and if we determine that there's nothing new that's arisen, we'll let you know and cancel that meeting.
Good.
All right. Correspondence?
There is a copy of a letter that went to all of our elected officials, or federal elected officials, thanking them for their support of our efforts to secure grant funding for the intake. And that copy of that packet, and a copy of the letter and the list of letters that were sent is in your packet.
All right.
Good.
Technical Advisory Committee comments? None? Got your big meeting tonight. You're all just pondering everything, I can tell.
What meeting?
I don't think it's your meeting. I think it's your staff's meeting here.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is time for board member comments and reports. So, Don, do you have anything?
I'm good, thanks.
No.
Brett? From University? I'd like to report on a couple things, and I think I'd rather have our mayor report on the meeting we held with the Farm Bureau, because that really relates to this committee. Would you mind doing that one?
I would. Thank you for asking. Farm Bureau's been a very strong supporter of Woodland, and we've met with him on several occasions. And so myself, Bill, and Tim O'Halloran met with the executive board of the Farm Bureau to talk to them about the Clean Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency and the project, answer their questions. Tim O'Halloran was there and gave a very excellent, summary of the benefits of adding 55,000 acre-feet of water to the public's water, the community, so to speak, the 45,000 acre-feet and then at 10,000 acre-feet, how that benefited agriculture, had the potential to benefit agriculture, and very well received. They went forward to their entire Farm Bureau with the report, had some very positive feedback, both from members of the Farm Bureau as well as the executive board. So I think it was just a public outreach on the behalf of myself and Bill. Many of the people in the Farm Bureau, their farm is in the country, but their home's not in the country. They farm outside of Woodland and Davis, but they actually live in Woodland and Davis, and so they're our customers. So they have a dual interest. One is the interest of their residents. The second interest that they have is how far down they're going to have to go in the aquifer to get the water that they need at their farm. So we were trying to, cover the benefits of this project as it relates to both of those audiences, and I thought it was well received. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Mr. Deemer and Mr. Thomas, Bob Thomas and myself have held meetings over the last 2 weeks, one with Assemblywoman Yamada, and I've held some subsequent conversations with her, and we just finished a meeting prior to the start of this meeting with Senator Wolk in regards to the need that we have as an agency to ensure the state match to the federal funding and to pursue additional funding for the broader project. And both Senator Wolk and Assemblywoman Yamada are very receptive and desirous to assist in that effort, and will do so. I think our conversation today was a very good conversation, and we'll continue, I think, to have the full support, which we do right now, of both Senator Wolk and Assemblywoman Yamada as we move forward. Also want to report that since our last meeting, we did have the groundbreaking of the site fill, which was positive, and I was encouraged that we did have representatives there, both not only from our local senator and assemblywoman, but also from federal representatives, Congressman Thompson's office, and he's been instrumental, really, in a great deal of the in the awarding of this important $16.5 or $7 million of federal funding. Also want to report that 2 days ago, I gave a presentation to the Noon Rotary here in Woodland, giving an update on the water project. There are many questions in the minds of many Woodlanders, obviously, with the delays that have happened, and we continue to express confidence that we're going to move forward together, and hopefully that will continue to happen in a positive way. I think I also want to report that Mayor Davies and I had a meeting with some Woodland staff with the Yolo County Taxpayers Association who have many questions about the project, and I think we did our best to respond to as many of those questions as we could, and may have follow-up meetings with them. Also had the opportunity to attend a regional update from the Association of California Water Agencies over in Sacramento. Two people that presented at this meeting were Carla Nemeth, who presented the current state of affairs of BDCP, and Randy Fiorini, the chairman of the Delta Stewardship Council, who presented the current state of affairs of that Delta Plan document. Very enlightening meeting. Some assurances given in that meeting that I think if the spoken word ends up in the actual documents, there were some important assurances, I think, for Northern California in regards to the preservation of water rights here in Northern California, and also the beneficiary pays doctrine being part of those documents. So hopefully that will emerge. I was a little surprised myself to hear such strong language from Carla Nemeth in that regard. Also want to make the board aware, I think I sent a copy of a letter that was unsolicited, but which we received just this week. And this was under the signature of Jim Mayer, who's the chairman of the board of the Yolo County Flood Control Water Conservation District. I think this letter bears reading. I think it's an important letter indicating support of what's happening. It's with great pleasure that Yolo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District writes in support of the Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency. The district has a long history of planning for and protecting the water interests of Yolo County, both surface water and groundwater. As you know, in 1994, and I don't think we can ever be reminded of this often enough, to tell you the truth, in 1994, the district submitted the original water appropriation application for 45,000 acre-feet from the Sacramento River that the agency is now putting to beneficial use. The district saw the diversion of the 45,000 acre-foot of water as an opportunity to reduce future conflicts over water between the urban and ag interests of Yolo County. Water diverted by the agency from the river north of I-5 will provide improved water quality and reliability to the municipal recipients and decrease the demand on the aquifers underlying the municipality. This will benefit not only the municipality, but also Yolo County's agricultural and rural residential groundwater users. As Skip indicated in his previous comments, the majority of Yolo County's agriculture and rural residential areas depend on groundwater. By diverting over 45,000 acre-feet, the agency is reducing the demand on the underlying aquifer and increasing its water storage. This will result in higher groundwater levels and lower groundwater pumping costs, benefiting both Yolo County's agricultural and the rural residential areas. It should not be forgotten that Yolo County's aquifer is a vital piece of the water supply for Yolo County, which is drawn on extensively during periods of drought. The district congratulates and supports the agency's actions, obtaining the water right, securing the required supplemental water required by the permit, and identifying a viable project while actively and successfully securing both federal and state funds to help finance the project is no small feat. And I think that's appropriate sentence to conclude that letter, because every staff member that's here has really I know, Herb, you're a little bit late in the game, but these staff members have been incredible in helping this process move forward, and I think we can't say enough to thank you and to compliment you for that. And the last thing I'll just mention, I believe that, Dennis, you are presenting at the WRA meeting on November the 5th, so I'd just like the board to know that the regular meeting of the Water Resource Association of Yolo County, Dennis will be one of 3 different presentations that are happening at that meeting. That concludes my report, and unless there's any other business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy?
Here.
And Commissioner Lizarraga?
Here.
All present.
All right, and the next item is approval of minutes for September 20th. Any comments or questions on the minutes?
No.
No? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes for September 20th, 2012, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed? No. All right, motion passes, minutes are approved. Next item is director's report. Cindy.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of items. First, I'd like to welcome our new commission member, Marco Lizarraga. Thank you. I also sadly would like to report that Commissioner Gonzalez has submitted her resignation, and we expect a new appointment in November for that position. And then lastly, I wanted to follow up on a request from Commissioner Murphy last time on sort of giving an update on the sports park and sports field. My understanding is that on July 3rd of 2012, that the council approved construction of the 6th sports field for fiscal year 16 and 17. But there's a note that the spending plan is reviewed annually by the council. The understanding I have is that earlier on there was some discussion about perhaps a second or third phase of the sports park, but due to declines in revenue and the lack of ongoing funding to operate, that's not something that seems to be on the radar for the ongoing future. So I hope that answers your questions. Okay, and that's it.
All right, well,
Can I ask a question? What's going on in the building down below where they're ripping out everything and they move Public Works out and it's kind of like a big, vast empty space down there?
Well, it won't be a vast empty space for long. It's very exciting. It's basically City Hall remodel, and the whole idea is to enliven City Hall and bring all the staff back into City Hall and activate that whole downstairs area. So where you're down below us, what's happening is a new public counter is being put back into that area, and that's where community development, planning, building, and development engineering will be located.
Oh, you're going to move over?
That's right. We'll move over from that building. Yeah.
Great.
So, and we're anticipating that in November, is what we hope.
Okay.
and the annex that you're in now will be closed or will be raised, or?
I think those items are under discussion. I'm not sure exactly what will happen with the annex. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, I wanted to also personally welcome Commissioner, how do you say your name again, your last name again?
Lizarraga.
Is it Zanorga?
Lizarraga.
Lizarraga.
Start with L-E-E, Lee.
Okay.
And then you can say Lizarraga.
Lizarraga.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you can call me Marco. It's a lot
so
easier.
Marco, okay, Commissioner Marco.
Just like Marco
Maybe
Polo.
you can maybe tell us a little bit about yourself so that the other commission kind of understands your background and what your interest is in the commission.
Okay, well, where do I start? I've got so many years already on me. Let me first of all, let me start with as far as to where I am right now. Right now, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit agency. We're a statewide organization. We have 96 offices throughout the state. It's La Cooperativa Campesina. We focus primarily on the farm worker. You probably want to know why would I have been interested in the Planning Commission. I have done planning work before. I used to be a consultant in planning. Believe it or not, it was a long time ago. It was probably about 18, 20 years ago. And I'm sure that a lot of things have changed. And I've been in this community now since 1997. And I just kind of felt that it was about time that if I can contribute to the community, like I told the mayor, I don't think I'm going anywhere now. I think this is it. I got all my grandkids here. They were born here now, and this is where I'm staying. So I said, so I want to be able to contribute to the community, whatever I can. And since I had a planning background, and I've always been interested in city policy, I thought I'd apply for it.
Well, thank you very much for that and for providing your service. We appreciate it, and we're going to need it as we embark on the general plan, and we'll hear more about that tonight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to working with all of you.
Yeah.
And I will do my best. You can
All
be
right.
sure of that.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next item is public comment. We have no public, so we'll move on past that. Any communication from the commission statement, from the commission?
I just have one thing. Actually, I won't be at our next meeting. I will be actually down in San Francisco attending the Green Build Conference, the U.S. Green Building Council conference. So unfortunately, that runs Wednesday to Friday, so I'll be down there.
Sorry, and our next meeting is scheduled for, Cindy?
I believe it's November 18th.
Okay.
Is it the 18th or the 14th?
No, I'm sorry, it's the 15th.
15th.
Okay.
May I, approach the chair? There's a slight possibility that I might not be able to attend that one. I'm going to be in that week in Washington, D.C., and I will be flying back on the 15th. So I don't know what time I'll be here. So it's more than likely I may not be able to make that meeting. I'm on another commission that meets quarterly in Washington, D.C., and it just happens to be that this meeting is going to be on that date.
Okay. So the rest of us are needed for a quorum. Okay.
We should have a new commissioner by then, do you think?
We may actually have a new commissioner at that meeting.
Because you still have a quorum.
Okay. Well, we only need 4 of us.
Well, with the new one, we would have 4.
Yeah. Well, no, there'd be 1, 2,
We'll
3,
have-
4 if the rest of us were here, so
Oh, okay.
5,
we'd be
yeah.
good. We can't lose any more than that. Okay. All right, moving on to subcommittee reports. Subcommittees, okay. All right, Cindy, we'll move into item number 8, the general plan consistency map update. An update to the city's general plan land use map to provide consistency with previous land use, zoning, and specific plan amendments. All right, Cindy.
Thank you very much. Well, the previous general plan map was created back in 1996 when the general plan was approved, and it was a black and white version. I think at the time the idea was that black and white would be easy to update. It would be easy to copy. However, we have found that a black and white version of this map does not adequately give a visual representation of what's happening out there from a land use standpoint. And this is particularly important as we are moving into a process which I'll report on later regarding the general plan update, which we have now kicked off and started. So having this map to use as our baseline is very important. In this map, it incorporates the urban limit line, which was voted in 2006. This map basically takes those land use categories that were in black and white and just identifies a color code for them. Additionally, there are a couple of areas, particularly in Spring Lake, where there were some specific plan amendments where they were not captured on a general plan map. And so those have also been provided. Previously, Spring Lake was shown as just kind of a big blob. And so we wanted to show the clarity of the different land use mix in that particular area. So, and I just wanted to, a question did come up regarding the city's zoning map as well, and I just wanted to clarify that this is the land use map, and what this map depicts is the city's broad land use categories. For example, highway, commercial, or industrial, or residential categories. It is the city's zoning map, which is the map that follows a general plan map, where more specific designations are provided that follow the general plan, but also specify uses, standards, and there may be further zones that, or overlays, for example, that are provided on a zoning map. I think, for example, the question came up regarding the EOZ zone, which we have actually 2 of. There's an EOZ for commercial highway, and there's an EOZ for industrial. And what EOZ stands for is Entryway Overlay Zone. And so I actually do have the zoning map to show you correspondingly. So I have to exit all the way out, though. So this is what the black and white map looked like that we're updating. This is the city zoning map. And so you can see that it's similar. It does not include the urban limit line. It just depicts lands that actually have designated zones and those corresponding zoning designations. So with that, we are moving forward, hopefully moving forward with this land use map change. The other map that I provided for you in your packet, which I thought you'd find interesting, was this land use map with the flood zones depicted, the 200-year flood zone. So, and let me go to that actually also.
So just for clarity.
Sure.
So going back to the zoning map
Okay.
as compared to the land use map.
Right.
The zoning map only, because it's a legal description, only incorporates the areas that's designated within the city limits, the incorporated area of the city, nothing
True.
else. But this land use map extends beyond
Right.
the incorporated area.
That's a very good point.
Right. But then on top of that, so we have an area that's designated within our land use map that extends beyond the boundaries of the city limits, but then beyond that, there's an area that's the urban limit line.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sort of 3 layers there.
Correct.
Okay.
The only qualification I'll make to that is the city does have the ability to pre-zone, and that can be on a piece of land that has not been annexed, which is the case, for example, of Gateway 2. There is a pre-zoning
And there's
that presupposes that when and should the annexation happen, that is what the zoning would become.
now how does that lay in with our sphere of influence? Is that line beyond the urban limit line, or is that coincident with the urban limit line?
No, I'll put it up. It is in line with, it is within the boundaries of the urban limit line. It is on a piece of property where the city, as part of the CEQA review and pre-annexation review, we do pre-zoning and overlay a general plan designation. So that the general plan designation and the pre-zoning, for example, Gateway 2 is the example, it corresponds to each other. So let me actually, let's see what we're talking about. So it's this area right here, which actually has a general plan designation at this time. It also has been pre-zoned, although it is not, this area actually has not been annexed into the city at this time, which this map depicts. We created this map to help discuss issue areas. And so what this map is showing is kind of the grayed out tone are those areas that are within city boundaries. The areas with the hash mark here are areas that are within the urban limit line but do not have, but are not annexed. And this shows the acreage of that particular area. These with the dots, there's 2 of them. This is the Gateway 2 area. It shows a piece of land that currently hasn't been annexed, but there is an active, active entitlement, active, as we were just discussing, that it has been through a process. This one up here, the reason I'm showing it is that we do have an active entitlement application on that piece of property as well for an industrial annexation. There we go. This is the land use map, which shows the overlay of the flood. Actually, the green is the 200-year flood, which actually in most places extends a little further beyond the Cache Creek flood, except for in this area right here. But you can see that it overlays a fairly significant northerly portion of the city.
When you say Cache Creek, that's just the 100-year FEMA map. So that's what's within that special flood hazard area.
Yes, that's correct. So with that, I would recommend that the Planning Commission review, if you have any comments, and then recommend adoption by the City Council.
I think the color is very helpful.
Well, we wanted the colors on the land use to look a little different from the zoning so that you could tell immediately that the two were different maps.
And this is, just for all intents and purposes, to go forward with a general plan update, sort of it's temporary. I mean, this is just...
This is temporary.
This would be,
That's
something that we would need so that it's official,
Right.
reflects what we have today, so that we know where we're starting from.
That's correct.
Identifies point A. Okay. And in terms of, well, I guess you might get it, we'll wait for that for the next item, like where we're going to go and what that boundary is going to look like in the future. So any comments or questions on this? So specifically, we're being asked to make a recommendation to the City Council for resolution. So if there aren't any questions, comments, maybe move forward with the motion. No questions or comments?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Sure.
Do we have a motion then?
And so moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution, recommendation to the City Council that adopt a resolution approving the general plan land use map consistency update. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Our motion passes. Thank you. So, an update on where we are with the general plan. Cindy.
Thank you. What I have up on the screen is a copy of a PowerPoint that we used yesterday for our pre-proposal meeting for the general plan update. We released the RFP and the request for proposal as well as a request for qualifications on October 5th. The request for qualifications, which is for project management services, the submittal deadline is November 5th, and the request for proposals, which is for the consultant team, is November 19th. And what I'd like to do is sort of go through a presentation similar to what I utilized yesterday to sort of give the Commission an update where we stand on various points, and as well as to assure you that we will continue to keep the Commission involved and as a very significant part of this update process. So, in the last couple of years, there have been a number of economic conditions that have fluctuated. We've had technology, evolvement in technology that has affected what goes on with uses, with what uses need on the ground, with how people shop, as well as many new regulations that have been imposed. So this is kind of to answer the question of why would the city even start a general plan? Why would the council feel that it's significant enough to allocate funds to this effort? So that is some of the reason. Part of the reason also are, as I said, legislative changes. We've got the urban limit line, in which there are certain actions that we are required to follow up on as part of our general plan, which is to analyze those lands within the urban limit boundaries and basically look at, can there be intensification of residential, and how will those lands develop, and what happens to the rest of the city. We've got stormwater discharge, which is coming up, which will impact potentially how we operate. There's climate change, which we've been talking about, flood impacts. Then there's other policy and political questions, services, creating an attractive community that's desirable from a quality of life standpoint. And then I think there have been some questioning about whether the current document really reflects the city's current vision and direction for growth and development. And the quote that I found pretty interesting was there was an article about a recent economic development summit that was held by the Chamber here, I think 2 weeks ago, and just to kind of look at Woodland, and business leaders were involved in that summit. And the question that was quoted in the article said, what does the city want to be when it grows up? And I think that's a big question that we need to focus on. And what is the city's focus? What puts Woodland on the map? What are its unique and desirable features, and what do we capitalize on that? So those are just a couple of the thoughts. With regard to how we're moving forward the process for this update, the first thing that was determined was due to limited staffing, first and foremost, but also due to timeline and budgetary reasons, that we felt that the money would be well spent to hire a seasoned project manager to help us manage this process. So that's our request for qualifications. We are asking an individual to come on to, they won't take the place of staff, but they're there to make sure we stay on schedule. They're there to make sure staff, has the ability to respond in a timely manner, as well as other consultants able to respond in order to keep the thing going so that we can make the time frames. The idea is we really do not want this to turn into a 3-4 year type process. Yeah. And as far as the consultant team, what we're trying to really focus on with the consultant team is who are the individuals who make up that consultant team, and what have they done, and what will they bring to this effort. It's not about necessarily the firm and maybe what projects the firm has done in the past. It's about those individuals who will be part of that team. And the other thing that was a kind of a big issue for the consultants as they think about how they develop their proposals is that the city has decided that we will provide any infrastructure reports that are necessary for this effort. So that means the city will contract with and provide traffic. If there's any updates to wastewater, sewer, water, we will handle that. They will function with the team, but we will be handling that. And I've mentioned timeline. That's really critical. We say 24 months in the RFP, but it's actually, we'd really like to aim for an 18-month and try to achieve an 18-month time frame. And that's actually going to go out as a note to all of those that we've sent the RFP out to. We're updating the website when we get questions. We really want to aim for that 18-month time frame. That'll be tight.
That's lightning fast in general plan turning.
Yes, it is.
Term.
The good thing is that we're not doing a complete overhaul. It's portions and components. We do have a budget. $1.2 million has been allocated to this effort, but that $1.2 million covers everything. That covers the project management. That covers the specific consultant work, the infrastructure work, the staff time, consultant team. But we feel, looking at that it's doable. So we'll see what proposals we get back. We were pretty clear with the group yesterday about what we're looking for, and so we're hoping that we get some really creative proposals.
What does the staff have an allocation of where they think that $1.2 million would go between staff, infrastructure, public outreach, and those items?
And we were asked that yesterday. It was somewhat hesitant, but I understand. Yes, we do. We're project manager. We're somewhere in the range of, I would say, 300 to 500 hours a year is what we're looking at for that, which I think translates into maybe under a 15%, more like that could be a 10 to 15% cost. You've got the consultant, the specific work, staff time could be, as typically I think allocation is about a 15%, and then the consultant team, we're hoping for somewhere in the range of a $500,000 to $700,000 proposal. And if they don't have to do the traffic and the other components, then
it's more plan preparation work.
Doable. The other thing is we really were trying to emphasize that they use data. They're with the SACOG, MTP, there's a fair amount of usable data that's out there, the census data, American Communities Survey data. provide some information, even though it's really was not an extensive survey. So to the extent possible, we want as little recreation of data as possible. There may be some need for that, though, as we look at what's out there on the ground, but the SACOG data should be able to help us with that. So one thing I'd like to kind of talk about, just briefly, are some of the key areas that, yes?
Is staff right now currently not able to do this work itself right now?
I would have to say that that is correct, because there are only two of us, and we are pretty occupied with day-to-day, just the goings-on of the department. This is a very intensive process. I mean, staff will be involved, and assisting, will be reviewing, but it would be very difficult to, with our staff allocation, to manage this.
I don't think I've ever heard of a city of our size doing any, like a general plan by themselves.
Yeah.
It's almost
I mean,
over.
I look at everything, and there's not a whole lot of growth going on right now. There's not a whole lot of building permits going out. That's why I wasn't sure how everybody was involved in that, if it was required. You know, I mean, that's a pretty big expenditure of money for, you know, for consulting.
It's actually a tighter budget than most.
Yeah.
Everybody's willing to work for that.
Just curious about one thing. You probably have an idea of the allocation between the project management and the consultant group. And the consultant group is going to do the EIR, they're going to subcontract it, or they're themselves when they propose, or are they going to do it themselves?
You know, that's up for them. They can do it a number of ways. The consultant team, often they team up together, and there are some firms that just specialize in doing the environmental documents. So we very likely will get probably multiple firms who are grouping together, one that will just do the general plan, the policy document, and one that will do specifically the environmental.
So they will be embedded into the consultant group already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just curious.
So just a couple of points, as we understand it. Flexibility, that's actually been one of the key issues that's been kind of coming up in discussions, that to the extent possible, the general plan should really identify core values and vision, but not set rigid policies, so that this is a document that we can actually take through whatever horizon year we determine, whether it's 2035, which is consistent with the SACOG documents. But, you know, it's a document that hopefully will stay relevant, and if we're good about identifying and, you know, really what the city wants to be and how it wants to grow, and sticking to those parameters, then this should be a document that hopefully is able to take us through. You know, just a little bit more about the urban limit line, which we already talked about, is that what it really does is it sets a grow-to line. You know, and the only way to amend that line really is to go back to the voters, which is a really significant effort. So that really does set parameters as to how best to use that valuable land that's left, and then what to do with those areas that can be either you know, reused. There's some commercial corridors where you could really see some changes happening along some of those areas. As far as the land use alternatives, we've asked that there be at least 3 alternatives is what we're looking for, of which one of those alternatives would be really pretty consistent with the long-term horizon growth projection that the SACOG group came up with. That would probably be our starting point. And the reason, and if that works, the benefit of that is that we can use and tier off all of their environmental documents, which is very beneficial for us in terms of environmental review of certain kinds of key projects, like the higher density transit-oriented type projects. The other thing I want to kind of point out is